I'm 76 years old, and I look fine on paper. Retired. House. A little pension. A social security check that shows up like clockwork. People assume I'm comfortable. They assume I figured money out. Here's the shocker. At 76, I still feel the shadow of one money mistake following me like a dog that won't stop barking. It's not a bad stock pick. It's not a business that failed. It's not some dramatic bankruptcy story that makes the news. It's quieter than that. It's lifestyle inflation, the habit of upgrading your life every time your income goes up, until your freedom never catches up. And I'm telling you this because I know the kind of tired that comes from making good money and still living paycheck to paycheck. I lived that tired. I carried it in my shoulders. I carried it in my chest. And it didn't go away when I got older. It just got heavier. When I was 28, I worked with a man named Frank Delaney. Frank was in his late 50s, hair always slicked back, hands like sandpaper, knuckles cracked and brown from decades of work. He wore the same faded navy work jacket every day, even in spring, and it always smelled faintly like coffee and machine oil. We were on a job site in 1978, a cold morning where your breath hangs in the air, the kind of morning where your fingers hurt before you even pick up a tool. Frank was sitting on an upside-down bucket, eating a bologna sandwich wrapped in wax paper. No chips, no soda, just that sandwich and a black coffee in a dented thermos. I was young and proud. I had just gotten a raise. Nothing huge, but enough that I felt taller walking into the union hall. I told him, "Frank, I'm thinking about getting a new truck, something nicer. I earned it." Frank took a slow sip of coffee and looked at me like he'd already seen the movie I was starring in. He said, "Kid, every time you say I earned it, somebody else earns interest off you." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because at 28 you don't think like a man who's watched decades go by. You think like a man who thinks time is endless. Frank wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and said, "You can have nice things, but if your nice things need your next paycheck to survive, they own you, not the other way around." Then he pointed at my lunch, takeout, still warm in its little plastic container, and said, "That right there is how it starts. Not the truck. The little treats, the little upgrades, the little conveniences. They don't feel like chains because they're soft." I remember the sound of the wind rattling sheet metal behind us. I remember the sting in my nose. I remember feeling annoyed at him for being right in a way I didn't want to hear. And here's what I did. I ignored him. Not dramatically, not with a slam of the door. I just kept living the way I was living. And the consequence wasn't immediate. That's the danger. The consequence came later, when later finally arrived. Listen to me. You don't go broke because you're stupid. Most of you aren't stupid. You don't go broke because you don't work hard. You work hard. I can hear it in the way you breathe at the end of the day. You go broke because your spending learns your paycheck faster than your brain learns discipline. That's the hard truth. Lifestyle inflation is a quiet thief. It doesn't kick the door in at midnight. It waits until you get a raise. Then it smiles and says, "Let's make life a little easier." And you say yes. You say yes to the newer car because the old one is starting to feel embarrassing. You say yes to the bigger house because the kids need space, even though the payment makes your stomach tight. You say yes to the subscriptions because they're only $9.99 until you have 12 of them. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a tiny hole. You don't notice at first, you just keep pouring. And then one day, you look down and realize the bucket never filled. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. Really ask when you're about to upgrade something. Is this purchase buying me comfort? Or is it selling my future? Because comfort is expensive when you buy it on credit. Comfort is expensive when it requires overtime. Comfort is expensive when it postpones your freedom by 10 years. And you know what's brutal? You don't feel the cost today. You feel it later. You feel it when you're 60 and you're still chasing the same bills. You feel it when your back hurts and you can't afford to stop. You feel it when you realize you built a lifestyle that needs you to stay young. Let me tell you about the second person. Her name was Marlene. Marlene was my wife's cousin, and in 1996, August, I remember because it was humid and the air felt like wet fabric, she came to our house for a cookout. She was 41 then. She pulled up in an older sedan with a cracked dashboard and a little dent above the rear wheel. Nothing fancy. But she stepped out, wearing clean white sneakers, a simple gold chain, and this calm look on her face that I didn't understand yet. People teased her. Marlene, when are you going to treat yourself? You still driving that thing? She smiled, flipped a burger with a plastic spatula, and said, I treat myself every Friday. Everybody laughed. They thought she meant shopping. She said, no, I treat myself by buying my time back. Then she told me something I still hear in my head. She said, I keep my bills low enough that my money has room to breathe. Room to breathe! That phrase hit me like a glass of cold water because my money didn't breathe. My money gasped. My money sprinted. My money disappeared as soon as it arrived. Marlene had a paid-off car. She had a modest townhouse. She packed her lunches. She said no to things without acting like she was deprived. It wasn't misery. It was power. And here's the emotional part. 2 years later, in 1998, Marlene's mother got sick fast. Not a long, gentle decline. Fast, hospital, decisions, bills, family panic. Marlene took a leave from work. Not a meltdown, not a financial crisis. She just went. She sat by her mother's bed. She handled paperwork. She brought soup in a little thermos. She was present. I remember my wife telling me, Marlene's staying with her mom again tonight. And I remember feeling something hot in my chest. Jealousy. Not of her money, of her freedom. Because if my mother had gotten sick like that back then, I would have had to ask my boss for mercy. I would have had to calculate the cost of love. Marlene never had to calculate. She had room to breathe. And that's when it hit me. The point of money isn't to look rich. It's to be free when life gets real. So here's teaching moment number 2. And it's going to sound backwards. The more you can afford, the more dangerous your habits become. Because when you're broke, you're forced to say no. When you start earning more, you get the illusion that you're safe. And that illusion makes you sloppy. This generation has things I never had at your age. One-click purchases, endless subscriptions, buy now, pay later, and ads that follow you like they know your address. You can spend $200 before breakfast without leaving your bed. That's not convenience. That's a trap with a velvet cushion. Here's the counterintuitive truth. The fastest way to feel richer is not to earn more. It's to need less. Because every dollar you don't commit is a dollar that can protect you. And protection is what wealth really is. Not the watch, not the car, not the kitchen remodel you can't stop posting pictures of. Wealth is the ability to handle a bad month without panic. Wealth is the ability to take care of your body when it breaks down. Wealth is the ability to be there when someone you love needs you. Actionable insight: stop tying your identity to upgrades. Stop rewarding stress with spending. And for the love of God, stop letting your monthly payments multiply like rabbits. You don't need a perfect life. You need a resilient one. Now I'm 76 and my world is quieter. The mornings come slow. My knees announce themselves before I'm fully awake. I sit at the kitchen table with a chipped mug of coffee, and I look out the window at a backyard that used to be full of noise. What matters now isn't impressing anybody. What mattered then was keeping up. Keeping up with neighbors, keeping up with coworkers, keeping up with some imaginary scoreboard I never agreed to play. And I'll give you a vulnerable moment. There were years I couldn't sleep well because I knew the numbers. I knew what we made, and I knew what we spent, and I knew the gap was thin, too thin. I would lie there, listening to my wife breathe beside me, pretending I was fine. But I wasn't fine, because a man can be proud and still be scared. And I was scared of something simple: one accident, one layoff, one diagnosis. I thought I was providing, but I was also building a house of cards, just a nicer looking house of cards. Here's the distilled wisdom: lifestyle inflation doesn't just steal money, it steals options, it steals peace, it steals sleep, and if you don't stop it early, it follows you into old age like a bill you forgot you signed. So let me give you steps, real steps, not motivational poster nonsense. Do these, and you'll feel the difference in 30 days. 1. Freeze your lifestyle for 12 months. Do this. The next time you get a raise, a bonus, a tax refund, pretend you didn't. Route at least 70% of that increase straight to savings or debt payoff the same day you get it. Why? Because you can't spend what you never see. This is how you break the automatic upgrade cycle. 2. Kill monthly payments like your freedom depends on it. Do this. List every single recurring charge: car payment, credit cards, streaming, gym, apps, subscriptions, buy now, pay later. Circle the 3 that are stealing the most oxygen from your budget. Attack them in order. Why? Because monthly payments are the cage bars. They turn your future income into yesterday's spending. 3. Build a bad month fund before you chase big dreams. Do this. Save $1,000 first, then 1 month of expenses, then 3. Keep it boring. Keep it liquid. Why? Because a bad month is guaranteed. Your car will break. Your hours will get cut. Your kid will need something. Your body will surprise you. This fund keeps you from using debt as a life raft. 4. Set one number that defines enough. Do this. Pick a monthly spending target that allows you to save at least 15%, even if you earn more. When you want to upgrade, you don't ask, "Can I afford the payment?" You ask, "Does this break my number?" Why? Because enough is a boundary. Without boundaries, your money becomes a servant to your impulses. 5. Replace "I deserve it" with "I decide it." Do this. Before any purchase over $200, wait 72 hours. Write one sentence: "I'm buying this because Butnalis." If you can't finish the sentence with something honest, you're not buying an item. You're buying a feeling. Why? Because feelings are expensive when you outsource them to spending. I'll close where I started. I'm 76. Time moves faster now. Weeks disappear like loose change. I can tell you something you won't fully believe until you feel it. You don't get refunds on years. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck despite your income, if you're making more but feeling poorer, if you're upgrading your life but delaying your freedom, hear me. Stop letting lifestyle inflation compound the wrong way, because it compounds. It compounds in stress. It compounds in dependence. It compounds in regret. You don't need to punish yourself. You don't need to live like a monk. But you do need to decide what you want more. A lifestyle that looks good, or a life that feels free. You've got time, but not as much as you think. Start small. Start today. And then go live your life.